Hello, everybody. Man, that was really good to be here. I'm very honored to be here tonight. I know y'all heard earlier about Courtney's mom. Courtney was supposed to be here with you, and I'm actually very glad that I was asked. I know Clay had texted me yesterday morning and asked if I would be willing to come and share with you guys, and I asked what you are talking about, and he said 1 John, and then he told me what chapter 3, and I spent yesterday a little while and most of this morning in 1 John chapter 3, and I'm really glad that I did, and I hope that tonight you will be very glad that you did as well, that you spent time in 1 John chapter 3. We're gonna look at that together. If you have your Bibles, I know Clay's been talking about this the last couple of weeks. This was a sermon given to us to remind us that God is both light and that God is love. And we'll talk more about that in just a minute. But I want to ask you just a real quick question. How do you feel? Tonight, as you walk in here, you sing the song, how do you feel? Like, what's going through your mind? What's going through your heart? What's happening? Some of you are here and you're I'm kind of sitting here so I can see you guys, all your great costumes. Some of you feel like a little goofy because of the costume you're wearing, right? It's like, yeah, I kind of feel goofy. Some of you are a little scared because of what's been going on. Maybe things happening at home, maybe things happening here. Some of you are kind of giddy because maybe he asked you out or you caught his eye or something like that happened this week. But then immediately, as soon as you feel that way, you're like waiting on something to not go well because it seems like everything is kind of balancing out. When something goes well, there's like another shoe that drops to kind of count it. So you kind of have a sense of, yes, you're giddy, but you're also a little hesitant or maybe a little frightened that it's not gonna be what you thought it would be. How do you feel tonight? I want to get that emotion like right there in front of you. I want you to feel it. I want you to say, I'm afraid of this if you're afraid of it. I want to look at this because what I think is happening to so many of us is a weight, a sense of helplessness, a sense that we are subject to these things that we feel that we cannot get out from underneath. And we just sing a song that says, God, your love is too good to leave me here. Guess what that means? It means that you're not gonna be here very long. You're gonna be somewhere else. Things are gonna keep moving. Things are gonna keep changing, and that is a good thing. Things are gonna be different. When you come to college, when you get out of your home and you get into college and things are different, you start to go, oh my gosh, things are so different. It feels very discombobulating, very unsettling at times. When you get comfortable in college, your small group overflow, some of you are here, this is your senior year, this is your 5th or 6th year maybe, I don't know where you are, but you're gonna get here, you're very comfortable. And the adult world is gonna start looking very frightening. There's gonna be a change. He's just too good to leave you here. It's going to be different. And what happens is we get so comfortable with what's familiar and in front of us that we forget that we get a say in what it is that who we become and how we live this. And I wanna show you this truth from 1 John and the freedom that we find. That's what I hope will happen to you tonight. I want you to feel this thing that you're feeling right now. Everybody got it? You know what you're feeling? Don't be afraid of it. Don't feel like you're a bad person because you think that. Just whatever you feel, just get it in front of you. You got it? Everybody got it? Okay. So now just kind of sit up straight. Kind of shake your shoulders out a little bit. Maybe close your eyes. Just take a deep breath. Then another one. I want you to just imagine that there's someone who cares so much about you that they're willing to take exactly what you're feeling, they're willing to meet you exactly where you are, and they're willing to do something in you and for you that will put this thing in its place in order for you to be free. How good would it feel to be free from that thing that keeps hammering you over and over and over again? We have a saying in our house. My oldest daughter actually started this a few years ago. She got on a Whole30 kit. You know what Whole30 is, right? Whole30 is like where you basically it's the diet that makes you want to kill people. That's kind of what it is. And I tried this a couple of years ago. I did Whole30, and I never knew what cravings were until about, I think, 14 days in, and you literally think you might just kill somebody. And Whole30 is where you can have like no sugar, no dairy, no grains. It's like meat, proteins. It's very difficult to do. And so we would all go out to eat, and my daughter Madison would be there, and she would start going, I can't have what anybody else is having. I can't do this. And she would go, she'd do her hand like this. I'm like, what is that? She would go, I'm no victim. I'm no victim. I live with the vision. Now, my daughter, Maddie, has lots of names that I call her. I call her Mi Bonita. That's she loves Spanish and speaks Spanish. She loves Spanish. And she was in high school, and the only word I knew was you're beautiful. So I called her Mi Bonita, so she's my beautiful. And that's one of her nicknames. But the other nickname I call her, she is Charismatic Maddie. And this is because Maddie gets all of her music off YouTube. All of her worship songs off YouTube. They're like 14-minute long songs, and she sends them to me. And so a few years ago, she's doing this, I'm no victim. She sends me this song, and it's called I'm no victim. And it says, I'm no victim, I live with a vision. I'm no victim, I live with a vision. And as I begin to think about this, it's actually an important thing for you and I to understand, because what we get comfortable with is living without vision. And when we do that, we're gonna live as a victim, subject to what happens to us and what happens around us. We forget we've been given this power, this authority over certain things. And this is demonstrated for us throughout the scriptures. In fact, if you've been coming on Sundays very long or at all, my name is Mike, by the way, if you haven't been coming. But if you've been coming, I've been kind of on a tear about this idea because I'm sick of people presenting the gospel as though it's a decision to be a better moral American person so that you can go to heaven when you die. That is such a lame, shallow, impotent view of the gospel. When it tells us, and really the war is so much deeper and more profound, and the gospel is so much more powerful than what we imagine. It's not a moral issue, it's an authority issue. It's for you to be able to step back into the rule and the reign for which you have been intended and called and gifted and empowered. And this begins in the very central realm of what it is you've been entrusted with, namely your body and your soul and your mind and your eyes and your ears and your hands. You've actually been given dominion, called by God to rule and to reign, to not be subject to those things. This is where the tension starts to settle in. There's our feelings, and then there's this idea of reality or the truth. So what you have to do is you have to figure out which one of these is going to rule or govern or reign. Everybody knows what you feel, and you feel it very quickly, and you sometimes feel it at the most random times. Just when you think you're doing fine, something comes in and it makes you feel something, and we get paralyzed, we get afraid, and it starts this whole cycle of, oh my gosh, and our hearts just get more and more and more compressed and compressed, and we become more and more focused on what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me. We can't do anything else. What I want to tell you is you are not a victim, but you're going to have to learn to live with vision. So I want you to hear some truth tonight that will hopefully begin to shift this cycle. A lot of us, we let our feelings define the truth, and instead we need to let the truth start to define our feelings. They're both important, but one needs to be subject to the other. So 1 John, and I'll just kind of run this out. Clay has been talking about this. He mentioned that this is a sermon. This whole book of 1 John is a sermon. a proclamation that God is both light, in him is no darkness at all, and God is also love. And I think that will be mentioned more in chapter 4 in next week's message. But Clay said, kind of about where we've reviewed the last couple weeks, is that we are known and seen by God. That God is light means that we are known and seen by God, and therefore we have the capacity to be known and seen by other people. And y'all been talking about this. That was last week's message as Clay dressed up like a confused Duke fan. I know he's a Duke fan at heart, but he had some other stuff going on I can't really understand. The second thing is that God is love. God is love, to walk in him, to abide in him, to be saturated and to be consumed. When you think of God being love, this isn't a novel idea, a hallmark idea, something we go, oh, God is love, and that means he's friendly and he's nice. It's not what it means. The message, the movement of love is actually violent and it's redemptive and it comes at us. Love is not like calligraphy. I tell people this all the time. I do a lot of weddings. And I always ask them, I always tell the bride and the groom as they're standing there before everybody and they're both looking so good. And I taught them about this idea. And I said, everybody thinks that love is like, oh, this is love. We're like sitting here with our flowers and our white dresses and our tuxedos. Oh, and this is love. And then we read like the passage, like with calligraphy and flowers. We say, oh, love is patient and love is kind and love is not jealous and love does not boast. And we're like, oh, that's so sweet. No, it's not. Patience is only sweet until you have to be patient. Then it's a pain in the rear. That's what love is. That's what love is. Love comes to you. It comes at you. When it says God is love, it means he came for you with a violent force. He came to get you, to buy you back, to come to you, to demonstrate your worth to him, to demonstrate and to breathe value into everything that you do, to say that you matter. That's what love does. That is the essence of who God is. He has made you by him or through him, and he has made you for him. And so this is what Clay has been talking about and underscoring. He talked about this idea of that God is light and that God is, it's an L, that God is love. So I began to think about this. And if you think about the opposites here, this is how I think of things. The opposite of light, any guesses? Right, darkness. And it talks about this throughout this passage in 1 John chapter 2 and beyond. It says that they did not know where they were going because the darkness had blinded them. It keeps us from seeing. It keeps us from seeing. This is what happens to us. The more consumed you get with what's wrong inside of you, the more darkness begins to close in. And when darkness closes in, it does the very opposite of what you need, which is to be able to see. It's interesting to me that in John chapter 3, in 1 John, is essentially a compressed version of the Gospel of John. If you read it parallel, it's quite fascinating. It's 5 chapters in 1 John, 21 chapters in the Gospel of John. But in John, the Gospel of John, the fourth book of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the fourth book of the New Testament, John writes this. He says, this is the verdict, the light has come into the world, talking about Jesus. The light has come into the world, and men did not come into the light because they loved darkness. They feared coming into the light because their deeds were evil. When you begin to think about it, it says that men loved darkness. So what happens is we go, oh, people love darkness, and you start thinking about all the things that you love to do. And what it's really starting to set up is this tension that actually creates the other opposite here. It says that men loved darkness because they were afraid to come into the light. And what you begin to see is the opposite of love isn't hate, it's fear. It's fear. It's the thing that makes you afraid that you'll miss out, or that you won't be enough, or you won't measure up, or this thing won't work out. It's all of those things. And what we begin to do is we begin to hide and we begin to pull away. And the first thing that you have to do is to understand how is it you step into this place or this way in which you are loved by God. I get on down into the weddings, and I always ask them, I said, you guys are looking so beautiful today. And I tell the woman, I said, listen, ma'am, your husband is never gonna look as good as he does today. This is as good as it's ever gonna get. It's all downhill from here. And I asked him, I said, you're gonna pledge to love one another, to give of yourselves. I said, where are you going to get the strength to do that? Oh, well, she's so beautiful, and she's perfect, and she's so sweet. I'm like, but someday she's not gonna be. Well, one day he's not gonna be. Where are you gonna get the strength? You mean to tell me that person's gonna have to live the rest of their lives with you being worthy of your love? Do you know how much pressure that is? Do you know how much pressure it is to live as someone's husband or someone's wife when the only reason they love you is because you are worthy of their love? That's not at all how this works. Instead, what you do is you learn how to receive God's love, to simply sit and to receive, to take, to possess, to grab his love for you, to recognize that he has come for you, he has made you, he has loved you so deeply, and then you simply exchange or avail or give that, offer that to the other person. When you do that, you learn what it means to actually be alive. 1 John chapter 3 starts off like this: behold, what manner of love the Father has lavished on you, that you should be called a child of God. For such you are. The world does not know us because it does not know him. What we shall be, we cannot yet see, but when he appears, we will be seen fully. And whoever sees him purifies himself just as he is pure. Behold. Y'all know I pick words every year, right? I don't know if y'all know this or not. I pick words every year. We lead our congregation to do this. My one word. My one word this year is behold. It means to set your gaze on something and to look. To behold what manner of love the Father has lavished upon us, that we should be called his son or his daughter, that you should be called his son or his daughter. It's an invitation for you to consider, what manner of love is this? What way is this that he would call you that? If you keep reading, we're gonna kind of scoop up here pretty intensely in verse 19 through 21. But I wanna just look at this as you kind of run on through this. He says, everyone who sins breaks the law. In fact, sin is lawlessness. This is verse 4. In fact, sin is lawlessness. But do you know that he appeared so that he might take away our sins, and in him is no sin? Clay, I think, alluded to this or talked about this last week. No one who lives in him keeps on sinning, and no one who continues to sin has either seen him or knows him. And now we're going, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Dear children, do not let anyone lead you astray. Then it goes on, verse 11, we have heard from the beginning we should love one another. Do not be surprised, and it just keeps going. And what it starts to set up is this way in which we are to live our lives as his children, as those who live as though they are loved by him. And then in verse 19, it says this, and I'm reading out of the English Standard Version, the ESV. By this we shall know that we are of the truth, and therefore reassure our hearts before him. This is how we know that we are of the truth, and therefore it does something to our hearts. Okay, so we got to pay attention to this. For whenever our heart condemns us, God is greater than our heart, and he knows everything. Beloved, if our heart does not condemn us, we have confidence before God. And whatever we ask of him, we receive from him, because if we keep his commandments and do what pleases him, because we keep his commandments and do what pleases him. And this is his commandment, that we believe in the name of his son, Jesus Christ, and we love one another just as he has commanded us. These 4 or 5 verses here pack a wallop. And I want to talk just for a few minutes about this tonight and see if we can make some sense of this and then leave you with something that you can hold on to, The two observations that are made, it says this. It says, not if, but when our hearts condemn us. What does this mean? This means when we feel blame or shame or undermined or cut or hurt or pulled or stretched, when your heart condemns you. Not if, but when. My question is, what is it that makes you feel that way? What is it that makes you feel that way? That's the thing that you got in front of you when we talked at the beginning of our time. What is it? Is it him? Is it her? Is it it? Is it this? Is it exam? Is it pressure from all these things that you're supposed to know what you're supposed to do already? Is it all these things? What is it? What is it that makes your heart feel condemned? What is it that makes you feel shamed? Or makes you want to run away? Or makes you want to pull back? What is it? Whenever our hearts feel condemned, it says, God is greater than our heart. And whatever it is that you've got going on, whatever the thing is, what he says is God is greater than that. What he says is you are giving something authority that God has greater authority over. And you got to start to see this. You got to start to play this out. You got to start to understand how this works in your life. This is the process by which our hearts are no longer condemned. Not because of anything that you've done. Listen, what it talks about, and if you read it in the Bible, what you'll see is, I'm a big believer in getting our thoughts, and there's a lot of reasons, but this is the language in 2 Corinthians chapter 10. For we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons that we fight with are not weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take every thought captive and we make it obedient to Christ. Every one. We take every thought captive and we make it obedient to Jesus Christ. We need some way to stack up what we are feeling with what is true. Whenever our hearts condemn us, we need a truth that says he is greater and has authority over whatever it is that we are facing. We need a way to bring whatever it is we're thinking, to grab it and to set it up against anything that comes against our knowledge that we are beloved children of his. Now listen, I want to be really careful. We live in a culture where we validate everything. Oh, you're feeling this? Oh, we validate it. Listen, I want to be really, really clear. What you are feeling, you need to validate your feelings. When you are feeling something, you don't need to suppress it or to pretend it doesn't exist. You need to validate your feelings, but what you do not need to do is to over-validate them. They do not have final authority if God is greater. And the question is, how do we learn how to live in that? Behold, what manner of love the Father has given unto us, that we should be called children of God, for such we are. Whenever our hearts condemn us, it says, every time they condemn us, we have to profess and find and learn and look and declare that he is greater. To take whatever it is that we are feeling, to stack it up against what is true, and then learn how to live from there. The second thing it says, and I love this in verse 21, it says, beloved, if our hearts do not condemn us, then we have this confidence before God. Beloved, those who are loved, those who belong, if your heart is not condemned, when you're free from this, you are free before him. You are free before him. What this means is we are free to continue to live and to love. It's interesting in here, it says that when we ask, whatever we ask, we receive from him because we keep his commandments and do what pleases him. He says the commandments are this: to believe, and to love. I think we hear this and we go, oh yeah, I got that. Do you realize how hard it is to believe? I don't think we take into account how difficult it is to believe. I was a Christian for a long time, and a lot of my Christianity was based on the fact that I was a good kid. I was a good moral person. I had kept the laws. I'd done things right. I did all the right things, kept the big five all through college, did really well. And then I did all the things right. And that was kind of my basis. And I hear people talking about grace, how God forgives us of our sin and we don't have to keep a checklist anymore. I'm like, doesn't that seem to take sin lightly? And I was at this conference with a friend of mine. We were sitting there talking about this. I said, it seems like you're diminishing sin. You're making it less. He said, Mike, one of the hardest things for a human being to believe is that they actually want what God wants. It is so hard for us to trust ourselves. It's so hard to trust that the things that God has given you passions for, they may actually be from him. It's so hard for us to say, I believe in the name, and then to live as though it is true, to actually believe and to walk in the truth of those things. It's hard. And sometimes it doesn't feel that way. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way. A few years ago, it's happened since I was about 37 years old. I'm kind of hypochondriac. I don't know if anybody ever struggles with hypochondria. Like you always think, I'm dying. This is the big one. Well, I started this, and I think I was 37 the first time it happened, and I was actually doing a wedding, and I started getting short of breath. And I thought, oh, Lord, please don't let me die while I'm doing a wedding ceremony. That would be a story of all stories. It would be a terrible way to go. And so I'm having trouble breathing. I didn't tell anybody, because that's what you just don't tell anybody. Just pretend I'm not telling anybody. It loves the darkness. I just pretended. I'm like, man, I'm not breathing. So I had a doctor, a friend of mine, said, hey, can you listen to my chest? I think I'm dying. This is the big one. He's like, dude, you're fine. So this went on about every 3 years. I would tell Julie, I think I'm dying. I go see my doctor. I said, man, I think I got a tumor right here. Like, can you push right there? Because you hear something, it's like, I'm dying. So no joke, about 3 or 4 years ago, this happened again. And I was laying in bed one night. I started feeling like short of breath and getting chest pains. This is like on a Thursday night. Thursday night, I'm like, it was on a Wednesday night. I think I'm dying. So I'm laying there. I was like, I'm just going to go to sleep. And if I die, I die. My wife's laying next to me. I'm just going to, if I die, I die. So I went to sleep. I woke up. I'm like, all right, I'm not dead. So I called my doctor. I said, Scott, I said, I think I'm dying. He's like, Mike, this is Thursday, but this time he said, I'll work you in today. So I come in, they give me an EKG, do my breathing stuff. He's like, okay, Mike, your blood pressure's fine, your EKG's fine. It's all fine. You're fine. I'm like, say it again. He said, you're fine. I was like, can you hold my face in your hands and tell me I'm fine? And he said, you're fine. I said, okay, so I can exercise. He said, you can exercise. I said, should I drink caffeine? He said, well, if you drink a ton, you might not want to drink as much. I said, okay. So next morning, no caffeine. I'm on a diet. I'm all in. I hadn't run in 5 years. I went and ran the loop in 14 minutes. I come home my heart's beating, haven't had caffeine. I'm like, I'm dying. I'm sitting in my backyard. So he gave me a cell number, so I text him, dude, I'm dying. So he calls me, what's going on? I said, I haven't had any caffeine. I just ran the loop in 14 minutes, and I think I'm dying. He said, well, if you ran the loop in 14 minutes, you didn't die, you are not having a heart attack. You are totally fine. Go get you a cup of coffee and relax. You're going to be fine. And so this goes on Friday. Saturday, I wake up, same thing's going on. And I feel a little bit better, actually. Saturday, I wake up feeling better. And I'm getting nervous about Sunday because my other paranoid dream, my other kind of paranoid thought is that I'm going to die on Sunday morning in front of everybody. I have a heart attack. So every Sunday, I'm back there going, just don't have a heart attack on stage today. I don't know why. It's just that thing in my head. So I'm back there, so I'm Saturday, and I'm getting ready for my message, and I'm like, man, I start getting nervous. You know how you get something in your head and it just won't let go? Has it ever happened to you? It's like a thought, and no matter what you do, no matter how much, I'm fine. And it doesn't go away. It doesn't make you feel any better. So you know what I did? What would you have done? If you had your doctor's cell phone number, what would you do? You'd call him. Scott, it's Mike. What are you doing? Okay, I feel okay. I'm just feeling a little like I'm gonna die. I said, can you just tell me again that I'm going to be okay? He said, Mike, you are going to be okay. I said, okay, I just needed to hear that from someone who I trust. And I hung up the phone. So here's my point. When I'm talking to you about bringing every thought captive, that whatever your heart can do, I'm not telling you about self-talk. I'm not telling you about positive thinking. Let me just talk myself into feeling better. I'm talking to you about listening to the voice of the one who loves you and has come for you and to hear his voice. That is much different than self-talk. To stop and to hear, beloved, right? Behold, what manner of love, that you are that person. That I have made a way that whenever your heart condemns you, I am greater than that. For you to try to talk yourself into that you can do it is much different than you hearing him tell you, I am greater than that. You know how hard it is to believe that? Do you know how hard it is to believe that? It's hard. Because sometimes it doesn't go away immediately. And here's the thing. A lot of what you're going to experience about God and faith is only going to happen 8 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. He's not going to leave you here, in college, at Overflow. It's going to move. It's going to change. You're going to grow. You're going to become. 10 years. 15, so much. I'm not sure if I've shared this before, but when I was in college, I was terrified for a lot of reasons. I didn't know if I'd be any good at anything. I didn't know what major I would pick. I didn't know how I'd compare to all my other friends. I picked a major, studied architecture, went to school, tried to do the right thing. All my friends were out drinking and partying, and most of them did better than me. I was so mad at God. Like, God, here I am trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to do what you asked me to do. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm trying to do this. And like, everything's working out for them, and this is miserable. This is miserable. I sat in my dorm room on many a Thursday and Friday nights while everybody was out by myself. That's a really hip, cool college experience, let me tell you. And I remember one night I'd learned to do a quiet time. I was reading Psalm 73. And Psalm 73, and it's one of those moments where I thought, man, God really gets me. God, you really get me. Because it says this, it's like the crazy people succeed and the righteous people have to suffer. And then it got to this verse in Psalm 73, and it says, surely in vain I have kept my heart pure. God, surely it's gonna do me no good to do this now because it's just gonna go for nothing. I'm gonna work really hard. I'm gonna try to do what you asked me to do right here, right now in this college realm, and it's just not gonna pay off at all. And I started whining. Oh God, the psalmist gets me. Don't you hear me, God? Surely in vain I've kept my heart pure. This is never gonna work. This is no good. Let me do what I wanna do. And then it goes on and he says, as you get to the end of Psalm 73, it says, but whom have I in heaven but you? And on earth, who would I ever desire besides you? But surely the nearness of God is my good. The nearness of God is my good. What I have learned in my life is all the things that you're struggling to hold on to and to believe now aren't going to come to fruition tomorrow or the next day or the next day. They're not. What if you holding on now would be the thing that you realize was worth giving your life for 10 years from now? Would it be worth it to hold on to it now? That's what this looks like. I remember I struggled all the way through high school, college, until my 10-year high school reunion. I went back to my 10-year high school reunion, and all the cool kids in my high school class, I was like, what happened to you? Like it was like to see full, like just, and it's been like that in so many, and not in a negative way to people, but just so many ways where God has been so faithful. If I would just hold fast. Whenever your heart condemns you, God is greater. He is greater. So here's my question. This is what I want to leave you with. We're going to kind of declare this together. Which one is going to get to rule? Which one is going to get to rule? Behold, what manner of love the Father has given unto us, that we should be called his children. That is who he says that we are. And I want to encourage you to live, to believe, to trust, and to walk in that reality for the sake of what he wants and has for you. Let me pray for you guys. Father, I thank you. I thank you so much that you have made a way. And my prayer for those folks gathered here tonight, for these students, God, I pray that as they confront the things that they feel, that you would meet them with your voice and just say, I'm greater. I'm greater. God, that our hearts would, by the power of your Spirit, would awaken to that reality. That every thought that comes and threatens or stands against that reality would be demolished and destroyed. That you would give us dominion and rule over our thoughts so we are not a victim to what we are thinking or what we're feeling, because we have a Father who is greater, who is greater. God, I pray that you would rise up belief and faith in the hearts of these students, that fear or anxiety or depression or comparison or anything else would have any more rule in their lives. God, I ask that because I know that's what you want and what you long for in the hearts of every student here. And so, Father, I ask this, I declare this according to your promise in the name of your Son, Jesus, who is our King. And I want us to stand and to sing this as those who belong to him.